Hey guys, how's it going? So, ae-GISELLE just came out today, and they also showed the teaser for ae-KARINA last night actually, so I also wanted to talk about her and my impressions of her. But I definitely want to focus mostly on this character that just came out, and what I think about her, should you pull her, what I think of her artifact, etc. So let's get right into it. So, I grace a growth this character. When I saw her skill set, I was like, oh, it seems pretty good, and the preview looked pretty nice. She did a lot of damage, but I like to grace a growth some characters like this that I'm not quite sure if I actually want to max. Now, she is the type of character that you really need to max her S3 and her S1, so it's actually really unfortunate that grace a growth doesn't max this, but I'll definitely say that it didn't really matter whether or not I maxed this for my testing overall, and I'll explain why in a minute. But what I did is I used her artifact. I think Time Matter can be really good. You could use Book as well, but I figured I wanted to try this artifact out. It adds a good amount of damage. You get the 10 souls, so she's self-sufficient. Now, a lot of the time you might be drafting her with book holders anyway, so maybe it doesn't really matter getting those 10 souls, and something like Time Matter would just be more powerful. Or maybe Book really helps the team a lot more. So depending on what you're using with her and trying to combo with, you might want to swap that artifact, but I figured I may as well try and use her own, see how good it is, if she really needs it as well. So, no imprints, pen set, destruction set, almost no speed, full damage. That's pretty much what I went for. I don't really have a lot of destruction gear and stuff, but I scraped this together and I thought it had pretty good damage stats overall. Now, one downside I'll say is I think having 350 crit damage is not great if you're trying to use her with somebody like Flan that gives crit damage buff or something like that, because it'll only give her 1% more crit damage, right? Since it'll hit the cap. So ideally it would be nice if I had like 300% crit damage and like way more attack, I guess, and it would give me a lot more overall. But yeah, so I built her with no speed because I figure I want to use her with characters like Flan and Oxlots and other stuff that just pushes up a lot. You could build her faster, maybe closer to 200 speed or something if you wanted, and use pushes that are not as big, something like Faithless Litica, for instance. But I wanted to go with the 0 speed one, because looking at her damage, it seemed like she would really need it if she wanted to one-shot things. She has this neat little passive that cleanses, so I guess that works against Sage Sleep or something like that. And it can work against Emo Lilia's attack down, assuming they don't provoke her. So those are nice, but overall, you don't really want to get debuffed in the first place. I guess a Politis stun or something on Crown could activate it as well. So, like, little things could possibly land on you, but I don't think it really makes the biggest amount of difference. But let me say what I think about this character. I think she's very hard to use, and I don't think most people are going to be able to use her. I think her damage is pretty good, but what I did find is people who really tanked down hard, this wasn't enough damage with attack buff to actually kill some units. People would use something like Arrowell, and sure, her S3 does actually ignore the damage sharing, which is great, that's really good. But it doesn't ignore the shield, and a lot of the time people would just be able to out-tank with it, which I found very disappointing. I'm kind of surprised because you would think it would just nuke basically anything in the game. I looked at a damage calculator of, for instance, somebody's Sid that they use, you know, the green 4-star unit. He's a speed imprint as well, but a full damage Sid would actually do similar damage to GISELLE, which I found kind of shocking. Now, you know, he actually has to deal with the escort and stuff, so he'll do less damage against Arrowell, but just in general, he's kind of just a more useful character overall. And GISELLE also has to compete with a bunch of other Cleave characters. She has to compete with characters like Strays, ML Pavel, C-Dom, Sid, as we named before. She's kind of like a Luna type character where you push them up, you S3, you kill somebody, and then you get to do another big attack. And her S1 hits really hard. Her S1 Soul Burn nukes really hard. Never really had too much trouble with it. But I found a lot of the time her S3 just wasn't doing enough. And hey, maybe I just don't have good enough gear. Maybe that's the problem. But I looked at all the gear on my account, and the other builds I could have done would only have a little bit more damage, and maybe that would have made the difference, but I find that kind of disappointing that you need to put your absolute best damage gear on this character at 0 speed, so, you know, a lot of characters might not use it. But you have to put that level of gear just to make this character work in specific scenarios, because you can't just draft her with every team. She's not a character that's easy to enable. You need a huge amount of CR push on your team if you want to use her like this. Now, maybe the other way you use her is you build her 200 speed, you lower her damage, and you don't use her as like the big nuke up front. She like finishes off a unit and then does damage to another. You could do that. But it feels odd because this actually gives attack buff to an ally as well, And then this also CR pushes, so it feels kind of counterintuitive to not have her be the big nuke, especially when she gets such a huge CR boost from her passive. So I found that very strange, but I can't use her with a lot of conventional teams and cleave units because it doesn't give enough push, or they just don't really combo that well together. And also, a lot of the units that are good at pushing ARPs, so Flan, Oxlots, Guider, Aether, maybe some combination of top model Luica plus another unit to give CR push, a lot of those characters don't have amazing base speeds. And one of the problems with that is, if you draft like that, even if I drafted a speed imprint and one of those units, my opponent would often just pick like Sid, a speed unit, and another speed imprint. Like, my opponent just didn't care. They were just like, okay, I'll just outspeed you, it's fine. They were so confident with that, which makes me think like, well, geez, if everyone's just going to speed contest me, then it's even harder to use her, right? Because you can't really use her in those kinds of battles. So I found this character very difficult to utilize. And in some of the matches where I'd actually get to use her, my opponent would be so unbelievably tanky that she wouldn't actually kill things, which I was really surprised about. In Guild Wars, I think she worked decently, but then I found a tanky Rimuru that survived her and then killed her, which I thought was kind of disappointing. But all in all, I just think most people are not going to be able to utilize this character. I think the majority of players are going to have a lot of trouble. They might not have enough damage to really use her, or maybe they don't really have the right team comp or units, or not enough speed to really use her. I think this character is mostly for people with really fast speed gear and people who are whales, honestly. I think she fulfills a similar role to someone like Roy Mustang, which is a really popular cleave unit in this like really big combo team that you run in with multiple books and he one-shots basically the opponent's entire team. I don't really see why you would use her over him when they're kind of similarly used, where you just push them up, you have all this setup, and then you just kill the opponent's entire team immediately. She's used in kind of the same way, but I think she's just worse. So I don't really see the point. So that's kind of my current thoughts on this character. Now, I don't have the best gear ever on her, and I didn't max her artifact. Okay, and I have no imprints. Sure, you can make her better, but I do find that kind of disappointing for a character like this, when I find it so much easier to enable a lot of these other ones, like ML Pavel and Strays, for instance, that, you know, they're big tank busters, and she's a tank buster too, but don't you think that there's maybe a lot of tank busters in the game right now, and maybe her role is already kind of filled, and maybe she's not really required? Because you need to draft specific stuff with her to make her really work. Anyways, that's kind of how I feel about her at the moment. Let me also mention Banshee. She's good at Banshee. She can be used to one-shot the Banshee. I believe she does more damage than Ram, I think, which is one of the best Banshee one-shotters. Of course, Baiken is the absolute best, but she actually seems to work pretty well there. I think you, depending on how much damage you have on her, you don't actually run Daejun Joker, you run something like Kaladra, I think, but anyways, I think that she can be used for Banshee one-shot, which is really helpful for some people, since also, maybe you build her so slow and high damage that you could use her in PvP and in Banshee, which is pretty cool. But let me also talk about Karina right here, the character that was shown off last night. So, this is ae-KARINA. I believe her base stats are the exact same as Cecilia, Lilius, and Belian, something along those lines. And she actually turned out to be a knight. Now, I've heard a lot of people say they didn't think that she would be that good, which I found kind of surprising, because looking at her skill set, not only is it interesting, but I think she might be a pretty decent character. So her S3 decreases defense of the target, increases speed of the caster, and a successful attack, which means it actually hits them, does damage proportional to her defense to all enemies, right? So when you look at the damage here, take a look at this. So that's 12,000 damage to Shu, the character she used it on. She defense broke, so she did a bunch of extra damage because of that, right? 14,000 damage to her from all that splash, and then 4,000 her, 4,800 her. That's a lot. That's actually an insane amount of damage overall. Now, this damage can't be mitigated by stealth. Characters like Winter and Spectre Tenebria and all those people are just going to be taking a bunch of damage. Evasion, bunch of damage to the face. Also defense breaks, which is pretty nice. And even to a character like Shu, it does 12,000 with escort and everything. That's really impressive. Now, I know she does have vigor here, and she had defense buff when she S3'd, but her passive gives her that. So I would say that's kind of fair, but even if you remove the escort and you remove the vigor, like, she's still hitting like a truck, and I think that's pretty impressive, actually. Now, her S2 is one of the most interesting parts of her. If an ally goes to 50% health or below, and that includes if they die, I believe it is the same wording as Closer Charles, then she activates this, she gets a 50% push. It is a non-attack skill, so Selene and Politis will activate off of that. You have to be careful of it. But she gets defense buff, which is great. That's a huge damage boost. And she gives a barrier. The barrier is not crazy, but it seems like a nice sizable amount of health. Hey, anything helps if you're going anti-aggro or anti-cleave. But what's so good about this is it forces your opponent to have to kill her first, because if they kill one of your allies and she pushes up and she S3s and does something like that and kills one of their units and then does a bunch of damage to the rest, that's kind of a huge deal. Especially if you have counters in your team or something, like let's say Belian, Aiden, Armin, Mercedes. Her splash damage is going to wipe the rest of your team. So that's pretty scary that your opponent has to focus her over everybody else, because you might have characters with tricks like Sage, Bounces On, or other people like that, and your opponent will have to focus multiple units. You don't use her just alone, obviously, right? Use her in conjunction with other characters that will really screw over your opponent's draft, and then they have to solve this complicated puzzle where there might not be any answers. And I think she really works at being part of that equation, which sounds really good to me. And also if they have things like Emil Pavel or something where they can't control doing damage and you have a squishy character, she's just going to push up, which is great. And it all seems relatively easy to build her. Like maybe you go 2,500 defense or something like that, and 20,000 health was a possible build I could make at 230 speed. I was kind of surprised, but maybe you want to lower some of the health and speed and you get like 100 F-res and immunity so that she's immune to characters like Flan and defense break and stuff. But those are just some possible ways of using her. I think she has a lot of potential with that. Her S1 is just decreased defense and it goes up to 2 turns. It's kind of whatever, but it's okay in a slow match. But then her artifact, when you max it, it is one of those whale artifacts, really annoying, has a 100% chance to inflict additional damage to the target based on your defense. That's why she hits so hard in the video too, because their defense broken and then it does the additional damage with this and the splash damage. But that means she's a pretty solid bruiser, I would say. Especially against like evasion units and things like that. And she's also an anti-aggro, anti-cleave unit, which I think is really good. I think this character seems like she has a lot of potential. In the video, they show her in a more standardish match, and she does pretty well. And they show her in a cleave match, and she pushes up and does all her stuff. I think she seems like a nice character. I'm actually very interested in this unit. I'm much more interested in her than a unit like Giselle. I found Giselle to be relatively underwhelming and only usable for very specific scenarios and drafts. So that's kind of my 2 cents on her, and that's kind of my review on Giselle as well from earlier. So anyways, I think that pretty much summarizes everything that I've been thinking about. You ideally would want to not Grace of Growth and actually have to max her stuff, but I still find her so hard to use that I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed. You might want to look at some other people's uses of the character if you want to really be convinced of it, but these are my current thoughts on them, and I don't think that I'm going to change them anytime soon. But hey, we'll see. I could be wrong, and if I am, I'll try to update this. But anyways, that's it for me. I have a few clips coming up for this character, and I think I pretty much explained what's going to happen in them. Like, she either works really well, or she doesn't work at all. But if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like or subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you guys next time. Okay. I think I win, right? Plan is really broken. Yeah. No guiding light on Lua? Yeah, I thought that was really weird, actually. I think I'm fine here, right? Like, I don't really... Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's just over. Even if I didn't have all these extra souls. Like, there's no way that I need to actually land a hit to kill, right? See how much damage this does on miss. You're tripping. Well, 16,000 damage on a miss. Let's see how much this does on a miss. 13,000. Alright, goodbye. Alright. Oh, that was pretty simple. So, I don't have any souls. Kinda sucks. Well, let's go. I don't know if we can deal with Carrot. This Carrot's also really fast, which is kind of scary. Oh, let's double kill Arby. You're tripping. I still can't believe they say that. You know, I don't know if I need to soul burn this. I don't need a soul burn that. Okay. I think this is the only play. Need to push her back. Unfortunate that it cleansed the good one. I really wish that it had cleansed the attack down instead. Well, we might be fine. Yeah, Silk has her S2 up as well. Oh wait, he has 2 burns. That's kind of a problem. Oh wait, I can there's no point in soul burning this, really. No, there is a point in soul burning this. Wait, check this out. Oh, hell yeah, check this out. My Flan has 93% crit chance. Oh, I guess I may as well just do this. Oh yeah, she cleanses! She self-cleanses! Oh, goodbye. Oh. Nice, the self-cleanse was actually good there. Wow, it actually, everyone said, oh, it works against Emo Lilius, and it actually did there. Wow. I have to just hope that I can one-shot Belian. I wonder if I can. I'm actually not super convinced. Ow. Oh, it's an injury one, huh? Well... I guess let's hope this works. Please? It's showtime. Let's see how much damage we got here. It's a good animation. Oh, no! If I just had a little more damage, it would have killed. Oh, man. What a shame. It actually did almost 25,000 damage. Yeah, if I had 1 imprint. Oh. I think that's a pretty tanky boy, isn't it? Whatever, I'll defense break Rem. Why not? You're tripping. He just counterattacked and procced his passive.